Hey, gang. 11:02, about to be 11:03, actually. There it is. 11:03. It's Friday. Who is ready for a weekend? God. Anyway, long week this week, busy week, productive week. And then there's my life. Okay, no, that was my life. But Supreme Court has decided. Let's turn a camera on. There it is. Supreme Court has decided that Trump has to help return a potential gang member or terrorist. I don't know. Do we know? No, because he wasn't given due process. And so he's got to be returned to quite possibly be deported again. But at least then we'll know for sure. We'll have an update on the New York City helicopter crash. It's a budget deal in the works. And of course, it's supporting Project 2025. An update on the overall global economy, stock markets, China, and of course, well, not of course, because I try to leave them out of it, but last night I got brave. And I sat down and while I was making dog food in the kitchen, I watched Fox News. Damn near ripped the TV off the wall. Nothing from the Ingraham angle is even remotely close to accurate. Nothing. Shout out to Radio X in Perth, Australia, DNR Studios. Derek and Romain are back this week from their cruise. I think they crossed the Atlantic. Don't we have airplanes to do that now? Anyway, check them out at dnrstudios.com and DNRcast, their mobile app. WZQR Talks in Pineland, Florida, 1400 AM and 107.1 FM, KSHP Las Vegas. The UG.media. Extra shout out to them on Channel XL today. I don't think we programmed our encoder properly last week. And so I think you guys missed some drama and some excitement here in the Mastiff Media Doghouse. We'll get you updated on that too. Rainbow Radio, Yerg's Radio, Discord, what else? Biz Growth Collective, and the rest of the Mastiff Media Network. Let's, times where you're at right now. It's 11:05 here in Tampa, 8:05 in the left coast and Las Vegas and everywhere out west, Pacific. 4:06 p.m. in London, 17:06 in Berlin and Gaza, 18:06. And by the way, Gaza will soon be moving ahead 1 hour. Where am I at? 18:06 in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Kyiv, and Moscow. 11:06 p.m. at our friends down under in Perth. 6 minutes after midnight in Japan, and 1:06 in Melbourne, Sydney, and Canberra. Where's my colleague? We're down to one for those of you who, was it last week or 2 weeks ago now? I don't even know. But, oh, look at that. Look who's using the green screen this week.
What are you talking about, man? I'm at my beach house.
Nice. I'm at a beach house of sorts. But, yeah.
Your whole state's about to be a beach with the way that weather and flooding is happening.
Well, yeah, that's what I just don't get the support for that guy. Trump was told earlier this week about polar ice caps melting. And
in all fairness, haven't they been melting for 40, 50 years now?
Well, yeah, and it's not getting any better. So he lifts all kinds of restrictions on coal, which is part of the problem. Something else we've been using for 100 years.
Clean coal, the cleanest.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he says,
so clean.
if the polar caps melt, that'll just mean more beachfront property. That's how ignorant this asshat is. It'll actually
Where were we
mean,
buying? I mean, I'm speculating already. I bought some beachfront property in Montana.
yeah, exactly. It'll actually be less beachfront property because the beaches we've got now will be underwater. This guy's just so ignorant. Oh, you got me started already. Look at that. So we got a list.
I saw the list.
Probably, let's talk about China.
China.
125%. Was it China? China. Shout out to Steve, CZ, Steven, everybody on Instagram. Wasn't that 125%? Wasn't that our number?
Yeah, well, it's actually 145
Yep.
now. They said this morning
For China or for us?
for China.
And what are we doing to retaliate? Because I know, obviously.
No, for us on China.
Okay. Well, so I saw that China was putting 125 on us.
Oh, is it?
I thought that was it. Let me double check here, and I'll share a screen too.
I guess you know what? We should probably know the news before we know about all of this, right? Before we start talking about the news.
Yeah, I started going through it, and I got to do a shout out to some neighbors too. They had me over for breakfast, so
breaking: China announces it's raising tariffs on all American imports to 125. Look, here's the thing, guys, and this is so stupid. China has been tariffing United States goods for so long with high import tax. Like, I think most people don't know that. Like, it's been a barrier to get United States stuff in there. If United States stuff is just not banned in China, you can't get a United States beef, you can't get United States milk or dairy, or most of the time vegetables. You don't even know if it is. United States cars are made in China, so they're not getting imports. You're not getting if it's Apple stuff, maybe you're getting Apple like iPhones and things like that, which cost a good VAT tax there. So you're paying 20-25% more already in China. Like, the fact is like China, this is a thing already for China. And to be perfectly honest, like, there should be something like saying like, hey, why can't we get more of our stuff in there? That should have happened 30 years ago.
And but when are we just going to sit down like China suggested and say, you know what? Let's start over. Isn't this 125% kind of ridiculous? Is that ever in the cards?
My opinion, I hope so. I hope that we can have free trade with China. But I mean, look, China has a lot of systemic issues with it. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I think people. I'm not even talking about the government or whatever. Like, we could say, well, it's not a democracy, so therefore we don't like it, or whatever political propaganda we want to throw out there. But
Yeah.
China has historically stole IP, has copied different companies, mostly American or Western companies, because they haven't really created anything. They've innovated the hell out of things, and they made a lot of good products. But just stealing IP. There's been always unbalance in trade. They have a firewall. You can't access internet in the Western world or outside of China for the most part. From inside China. They have copied every kind of media or any kind of online presence that we've had, if it comes from Facebook or Twitter or whatever. But everybody's like, oh, well, they call it social media, whatever. Like, that's not a big deal. But those are trillions of dollars of GDP right there of the American economy that is not banned, which they copied, pasted, and made their own versions. I mean, and so it's like, through all of this, and not only manipulating currency, and look, through all of this, China has purposely, strategically positioned their country to grow in an exponential rate at the benefit of themselves and the deficit of other countries that want to do trade with China. And so, like, the benefit that we have always had was like, we'll put the factories there and we'll get cheap stuff out of China. But other than that, so it's like, at some point that relationship was gonna break. Now, is China gonna open up at the end of the day and go, hey, we're good now. You guys come over here, start selling to us, and we're gonna respect international IP and all. No, it's not going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. So we can make a choice to say, how much do we want our Walmarts full, or how much do we want to actually take the power back to stop allowing our technology to bleed into a country that is now the second largest economic engine in the world, or maybe or the biggest producer and the second largest GDP, and the biggest military and all that stuff at our expense.
Well, that was one of the things that some of these tariffs started doing. Japan, South Korea, and some other countries were starting to work with China directly and not and cut the United States out altogether. Do they not see that, Washington?
I just don't think that it's going to be honored the way that they think it was. If you say that they're working directly, it means they have some kind of on paper partnership. But that does not say that they're going to honor the IP of Japan. They're going to crack down on, say, the counterfeit goods, the counterfeit products and software, and the bootlegs. It's not means that they're not going to get the reverse engineer the next Samsung. I'm sorry, that's Korea. Their next Sony phone. And make a copy because they have some good tech or something. It doesn't mean that none of that makes sense. China has never acted in a way of being a global partner and player in the aspect of what we're talking about. And so I just don't know what that means. Is they're gonna be partners? Hey, I won't get the China wrath. Okay, fine. I just don't understand what that means. But look, China is jumping ahead, but I think everybody wants to say, like, BYD is a Chinese car manufacturer, EV manufacturer, and they have now sold Tesla. China is coming out with great products, and the infrastructure, the things that China has done is honestly impressive, and it is doing is impressive, but we can't say that they did it with the good intentions of the globe or the United States trading or our economy in mind. It was just not true. So, like, when do we break that? When do we start saying, like, okay, enough is enough? Do you want to play with as like everybody else is playing? And we're talking about the EU. We're talking about Australia. We're talking about everybody. Do you want to, in Japan and South Korea? Do you want to play the same game or not? So the ball is honestly in their court.
What about things like USAID, and that being one of three ways our government dealt with diplomacy, excuse me, overseas, international diplomacy, military, State Department, and things like support like through USAID. With that being gone, is China going to fill that gap as well?
Yes. Yes, but these guys, look, these guys are strategic killers. Like, they're not going to play around. They're going to fill that gap and put everybody who needs that gap filled in debt, and they're going to own these countries. They're going to own the politics of this. I mean, to be honest with you, I think the United States was a little nice with this. They're like, hey, we're like, oh, USAID, this is soft power. We're gonna, and everybody's talking about the research and the medicines and the vaccines and stuff like that. China went in there, built bridges and harbors and boats and infrastructure, and then said, hey, you're in debt to us now. That's totally different than gunboat diplomacy and saying, like, hey, we gave you some vaccines, now be our friend. That's totally, like I said, they're killers. They're strategically planned, and they're killers, and they got their partners, and their partners are there willingly or not willingly.
Right. Yeah. What about similarly? I saw Hegseth announced a deal that is in the works with Panama, that we're going to have troops on the ground in Panama to secure the canal. Apparently, with this deal, on paper anyway, it's going to stay Panama, but at least it's going to keep China out or at bay. Have you seen that? I know this is kind of a late edition, so if you're not quite as ready for that, I'll get over it.
I have heard about that. I think that, look, I don't. What's your opinion? Because here's my initial thought is that, do I think that China has been manipulating countries and markets so they get benefit, especially over their biggest, I would say, in air quotes, rival, the United States? Absolutely. Do we think that everybody's playing fair in the canal or anywhere? If you want to talk about the South China Sea, or even with trade relationships between Southeast Asian countries and China and the United States, We look see what the looming threat is in Taiwan. So do we think that this is not happening? I think anybody says like, oh no, everything's fair and this is stupid and go away, then I think then you're just don't understand what China is. But at the same time, do we want boots on the ground for a canal? I don't think so. But we also have to start. The reason why that we would do that is because China has strategically, like I said, through decades plans, not just 4-year elections or every 2-year midterms, made a plan to say, hey, how are we going to leverage that and get in there, And now this is an economic war. This is honestly, you're and here's where I say that you're starting to creep into the world war. I think that we are now, and I think that we started it, an economic world war.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the usual BS line, and this isn't the entire. We'll click on it to see what the rest of it says. But Panama deal allows U.S. to deploy troops to canal for training.
Yeah, we see that China does that a lot over Taiwan too. We're just training off their shores.
Yeah, exactly. Those 4 troops that died in, was it Lithuania, died on a training exercise in the middle of a swamp right up alongside of Russia.
Crazy that all these Chinese Navy gunboats are training off the shores of the Philippines.
It's the 82-kilometer artery between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, and 40% of all U.S. container traffic passes through the Panama Canal. It's been in Donald Trump's sights since even before he returned to the White House. Now his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has announced a deal with the Panamanian government, authorizing the deployment of U.S. troops along this strategic waterway.
So that's something you said, we're taking back the canal. China's had too much influence. Obama and others let them creep in. We, along with Panama, are pushing them out, sir.
The 3-year renewable agreement is seen as a major concession to Washington. Hegseth says it includes free and priority passage for U.S. Navy vessels, but the Panamanian government won concessions of its own, keeping control of any installations and rejecting a proposal for permanent U.S. bases. And it's fending off any further ambitions Trump might have for Panama.
We had a hard time imposing the principle of Panamanian sovereignty over our territory in the Panama Canal. We removed the notions of permanent military presence, of military bases, of territorial cessions, because that is unacceptable.
Trump's repeated false claims that the canal is run by China may be partly because a Hong Kong-based company, CK Hutchinson, has operated 2 of its 4 major ports for almost 30 years. Last month, that company agreed to sell its concession to a consortium led by the American investment fund BlackRock. China spoke out against the deal, while Trump hailed it as a reclaiming of the canal, but a twist. Earlier this week, Panama's public auditor announced it found irregularities in Hutchinson's contract to run the ports, and that's put the BlackRock deal in doubt.
All
right, so little accent.
Trump's unnecessary trade war with China.
Where are we at with? Where's Blake when we need him?
I can't stand that guy.
I think so much of what he does is a clickbait. He kind of ramps up. It's not quite as severe as what he makes it sound. Like Trump snaps, goes off the rails, as markets tank.
He's the Democratic clickbait of like. Who would he? He would be the Matt Walsh of the left, maybe.
Which one's Matt?
I think he's a Daily Wire sort of guy as well, but
okay.
he's a troll.
I think he's more like I compare more to like Benny Johnson as somebody that I would know.
Yeah, actually, that's a better comparison. Benny Johnson is a better comparison. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, and that's unfortunate because much of what he says is very accurate. It's just that so much of it so much of it is exaggerated.
We see that's the problem with these things. Is first of all, it's like the problem of the feedback loop of social media. You have to exaggerate to get the clicks, but then because of that exaggeration, you just don't trust these people. It's like, can you just tell me what's happening, please? Or no, you're just gonna be like, Oh, now I fall into a camp because I watched this guy. Trump snaps, throws the table across the room, poops on the floor.
So the one thing that I don't like
Yeah,
about
he
this
didn't poop on the
Panama
floor.
deal is that we've got troops there on any capacity because we're so against sending troops to Ukraine where they could use actual military help, where we would do well helping Ukraine against Russia, who needs not only North Korea, but now we've got Chinese troops in custody of the Ukrainian government. But we got to put, again, we're back to bombing brown people. Not that we're bombing anybody yet,
No.
but tell me where, just because on paper that these bases will not be permanent, tell me where there's something that's going to actually enforce the deporting of U.S. troops out of Panama when the time comes.
Well, I'm not a fan of putting troops anywhere. This is definitely an interesting escalation. And again, it's just because we do have 2-year midterm mentality where it's like, oh no, we have to do something instead of plan it out like properly. So we have to go put troops there because we have no mechanisms in place to make a long-term goal or strategy to figure out how to do this without it. I mean, imagine. I mean, I understand the ownership of the canal and the relationship with the United States and Panama is different, but I imagine China was there on a training exercise. Like it would be like what?
Yeah, and that's the point. They're not. The company that was there for 30 years is sold to BlackRock, or is going to be. How about we not screw up that deal and keep this on a corporate level instead of a penis measuring contest?
Well, I mean, they are Asian, but I think we got that one. just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
I know it's a generality. I know it's a stereotype. I'm just throwing it out there though.
Was asking, Caesar Smith from Instagram was asking what I thought of the tariffs, and just in general, most of this is unnecessary, just like Donald Trump. And before Blake jumps back on and says that, I just hate Trump, I want him to do well because it means we're all going to do well. And when I heard that he was going to suspend these tariffs again for what, now the third time? Great. Let's spend the next 90 days learning about what tariffs do, as opposed to just say, well, we're going to put them back on again because he's, done golfing or done playing video games? There's no actual management, or we wouldn't be putting 125% tariffs or 145% tariffs on top of tariffs that are already existing. I think you talked about this last week, and I saw it in some of the other news reports that I was watching this week. There becomes a certain level of comfort with so much of the things that are going on, whether it's the eccentricities of Donald Trump. I mean, you talked about the Chinese doing a training exercise off the Panama Canal. Can you imagine if Barack Obama brought in a Secretary of Defense with the minimal qualifications like Pete Hegseth has? Or if any of his people were seen shirtless and tatted and
I don't deal with hypotheticals or whataboutism, so I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
Come on,
I don't really care.
He would have been chewed up and spit out.
I mean, it'll be chewed up by the right. I mean, the right, but just like the left's chewing up the same thing here. I really don't care. This is to quote Chamath Palihapitiya. This is below my line.
I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, he's a investor / podcaster right now, but
Oh, that's the guy that Ingraham had on last night.
Maybe he's just a Sri Lankan dude, American. Anyway, he's on the All In podcast. But look, I just don't. I hate the whole what about isms. Like, just imagine if Obama. Imagine if I don't know. I don't really know. Imagine if Germany won World War II. Then they make a whole thing, the man in the high tower or something like that, about a show about that. Or what was it? What was the show? Anyway.
I do know what you're talking about.
It's like you could think about alternative realities and what about
the Germans won World War II.
Yeah, or it's like who would win the champion Cleveland Cavaliers or the champion Chicago Bulls in their prime, Jordan prime or LeBron James prime? Like it's like it's fun to think about sometimes, but other times it's just not productive. It really isn't productive. Babe Ruth or Shohei Ohtani?
I'm trying to look this guy up to see if it was the one that was on Ingraham Angle last night when I damn near ripped the TV off the wall. But I'm not finding it. Anyway, all right.
But my idea of but if you're asked if somebody on Instagram or whatever is asking about tariffs,
good.
I really don't think that people understand how much some American things are tariffed abroad. Like I was just talking to my friend who has a Vietnamese girlfriend. Actually, I can't believe they're not married. They've been together for over a decade now. I think maybe even longer than that. He just came back from Vietnam, and I'm like, I'm talking to him. We're like, hey man, what about Vietnam and tariffs? Blah blah. He's like, yeah man, the United States cars there are taxed or tariffed at 120%. It costs like or foreign cars like Japanese cars. He's like it costs like $60,000 for a Honda Civic in Vietnam, and so it's like I really don't. I think people just need to go abroad and understand like how much American goods cost abroad, and it's not just import tax. It's like literally blocking America out of the country when it comes to certain goods, and so I don't mind reciprocal tariffs. Maybe I can argue about the rollout of these tariffs and the way it is. I can argue that who made a lot of money with the markets going up and down and Trump tweeting buy right before he released the tariffs.
Yeah.
We could talk about that. And if it's insider trading or corruption we could talk about that all day, but
I mean, that's also speculation and kind of sort of whataboutisms. But I tell you what, I've sent people to jail on a lot less evidence than that.
Well, I mean, yeah. Look. There, it is speculation, but there is proof of who you can find out who bought what at what time.
Yeah, and timing.
And then we could just see like, oh, do you think? I don't think it's a whataboutism. I think it's like a real ethical question. Do you think that the president of the United States should tweet buy right before he releases tariffs? And I know like there's a lot of people like. I've talked to all the Trump supporters and said, well, he didn't say buy stocks.
Oh, come on.
Come on, guys. Well, what he said buy something. Buy. He didn't say BYE. He said BUY. Buy. What are you buying? What are you buying? Anyway, long story short is we could talk about that.
Especially when the economy is bad and the numbers on Wall Street just dove. Yeah. What are you buying?
Exactly. And they had they printed one of the biggest days ever in the history of the stock market, up like 10%. Like, that one person that made a short, he made a long on the market. He had a long. Everybody should know about this already. It's been all over the news. This guy at like 10 o'clock a.m. after the market's open, put a long bet that closed that day. Basically said only this day and this day only will the stock price go up, X amount. And he put $100,000 bet and came out with $21 million. $100K to $21 million in less than 8 hours. Don't tell me that was a good. Show me the rest of the bets that he made the day before, the day before. Not just that one.
You can stare at candles for hours, and you're not going to come up with something that positive that fast without knowing something.
That is, look, luck happens, But why that day and why that time? We could talk about that. I want to see the stock reports from the congressmen. I want to look, something happened, and I will agree that should be transparent. But I also do like reciprocal tariffs. I do.
Okay. Good to know. So, do you think that he tanked the economy for the intention of he and his friends buying the dip?
I think I've said this. I know I said it on my show, but I don't know if I've ever said it here. I think that do you remember? I think I've sent you this guy before. Remember the CEO back during COVID and said that we need to have pain in the markets?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I remember. I don't remember who it was, but I remember it.
I'll find the clip and you can put it on here really quick. Oh, here it is. I just found it because this is just such a famous line. I sent it in the private chat. But here's the thing: is this guy said this, and everybody was just like, I can't believe this guy said this. But you know who didn't say I can't believe this guy said this? Every CEO or owner or tech bro or investor. You know, because I watched them during this, and they're like, you know, he's right. People got to get back to work. We got to make pain, get people back to work. I personally think like you can't shut the border and stop immigration. At the same time, say you want to put manufacturing back in the United States, and at the same time have a workforce to do that manufacturing. The fact is, you're going to have to create a workforce, and the best way to create a workforce is to make pain throughout everybody, so they have to take these jobs. Oh, look at that! That's cute. Thanks, a little QR code and everything. But anyway,
Yes.
I sent you that guy. That's my 2 cents. I think that they're following the plan of the ruling class, if you will, or the aristocracy, if you will. They want the workers to be not complacent, dependent on them, so that they could cut regulations. They can stop with workers' comp and paying insurance and all these different things, and paid time off, paternity and maternity leave, and get your ass back to work. That's what I personally think.
Yeah. I mean, do you
And if you're desperate for a job and you're desperate for food and you're desperate for whatever, you're not going to care. You just want a damn job.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Are unions becoming too complacent and not really doing their job anymore?
Let me think about that while you play that clip.
Okay.
Let me think about that while you play that clip.
Let's do that. I'll bring it back to the beginning. And here, give me the guy's name again.
Oh, I have no clue. What is it? What's his name?
Hold on. Remember the one CEO saying unemployment and pain in the economy needed to rise because workers started becoming less poor and having more power in the job market during COVID's economic growth. People can't afford to live because they need workers to be reliant on them.
I've been saying this forever, that this is going to be the plan. I've been saying this ever since he said it. I was like, this is the plan. Watch this play out.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. You know, tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. You know, they have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
Now, this was said, like, I don't know, I think it was at the tail end of COVID when everybody was working from home, and work from home became the norm. And so this was he was saying. And like, the fact is once he said that, I was like, I heard a lot of people, either company owners or billionaires or CEOs or very prominent investors, They all said the same thing. They're like, yeah, he's spot on. This guy, in his fairness, and actually, it's not his fairness because of because of social pressures. He came out and said like I shouldn't have said that. He doesn't. He 100% means that. And I feel that he just basically said the quiet thing out loud. What is the plan? This is the plan. The economy has to hurt.
Well, let's balance things out, shall we? We may not have Blake, but we do have somebody.
Who we got?
And it's a little farther right.
We got Phil?
Our resident Trump translator, Philip Blackett, is making a surprise appearance.
All right, Phil.
Let's get rid of the QR code.
Phil, have you been listening?
No, I just hopped in.
All right. Because I think Phil would have been on my side with this one, I think.
We're talking tariffs.
Okay.
And what needs to happen to make companies more productive, efficient, profitable, and as a result, what's going to happen within the workforce to make that happen.
Oh, I think we talked about this a little bit, Ross, in our show.
Possibly, I think. Yeah. Did you see the clip that we just played?
No, I literally just jumped inside.
Yeah, I heard you peep in. Well, I'll run this one more time. That way.
Red Sox suck. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was muted. I'm sorry.
I think that was coming from an Indians fan, maybe.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
So Phil, my thesis here is I saw this came out around 4 years ago, right at the tail end of COVID, and there was and everybody was working from home, and when I heard this, I heard, like I said, a lot of CEOs and investors and blah blah come out and really praise this idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I see is I think that's kind of what's happening. You can't have a closed border and stop immigration, and then want to bring manufacturing to the United States with the job market we have now. You need to hurt the economy and hurt people. So if you want to fill those jobs, you got to find the workforce somewhere. You're only going to do that by pain, and I think this is part of the plan of everything. And now I don't think that we want to see pain, but it only makes sense if you want to figure out where the workforce is going to come, how do you revitalize trades and manufacturing and the jobs that honestly nobody wants to do.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I like that. I didn't make a value statement on that, but he's just like, yes, thumbs up, go for it, let's go.
So
welcome, Phil. Man,
I know.
No words.
I like to bring some value to the table here. No, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, man. Because, geez, like I remember in economics class, there was this continuum that you have to balance from a national policy as far as inflation and unemployment. You don't want both.
What kind of crappy school did you go to?
Okay. All right now.
I'm just kidding, man.
We didn't do much here in the March Madness for North Carolina here, but they have
or for Harvard.
pretty solid economics
I
department.
I was setting you up there to say, "Oh, Harvard, that's the crappy school." But go ahead.
I'll let somebody else shit. I appreciate the assist there, Ross. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But you think about it, like inflation and unemployment. You don't want both because that's stagflation. You don't want that. That's horrible. But to your point, you know, I can see where this makes sense. Like the whole Great Resignation. Can we say RIP to that? Maybe where I don't think people are at a place where they can just resign just willy-nilly now, especially if after your retirement account looks a lot different than it did even just 6 months ago. That's pain, as Matt's talking about. You're not so confident to come over and tell your boss F off now, are you? Now you're more likely to say,
idea, though. Here's another idea, though, about those jobs that nobody wants to do. Let's not deport the people who were willing to do them.
I can see that because you have a vacancy. The job still has to get done. If you have people willing to work it, why not allow them to be able to stay and do the work? It has to get done. Otherwise, the job doesn't get done. We can't supply the products and services we have. We can't give you American-grown oranges and avocados and all that stuff, you know, so you don't have to pay huge tariffs on it, getting that from elsewhere, unless you pay the people here to do the work here and allow them to stay here.
I think that's one thing that people are missing with the whole China thing. It's like, first of all, I believe in, we just spoke about this, Phil, is reciprocal tariffs. I think tariffs, people around the globe, and I've lived in 5 different countries. I've been to about 40 or 50. People don't really understand like how much American goods are taxed abroad. They are absolutely taxed, and to get them is for the elite. Like you got to have some money to get a lot of American products. But one thing people kind of don't or forget about China too is like, oh, how did it become the manufacturing capital of the world? It's because you had a 70% poverty rate, and we're talking about global poverty, under $1 a day poverty rate in China. And so if you built anything there and said, hey, there's a job, they'll go work for $1.50 a day because that's a step up, you know,
50%. Yep.
So it's a basis up. So they had this in like baked in labor force that was just waiting for anything, waiting to be mobilized, basically waiting not to starve. So anything that came over there, but I think that's one thing that people aren't really putting into this equation. Yep. It's like the labor force has to be here, and I do think that immigration is a huge benefit for labor force if we want to get and jumpstart manufacturing in the United States. But without that, the only other option is to paying for the average individual. I promise you, these middle management jobs, these companies are going to cut. You're going to see people that were working at Google and whatever, and it's like, do you think they really want to start looking at trade jobs or manufacturing? No, but if they have to, there was this Ben Affleck. Yeah, Ben Affleck movie. I can't remember what it was called. It came out like 10 years ago. You know what I'm talking about? And he was a Wall Street banker. And then after the
Boiler Room.
Yes. Was it Boiler Room?
We have.
Let me look.
I still have to see that movie, but yeah.
So what happened was after the 2008 economic crisis, he had his Porsche, he had his house, he had whatever. He was making good money, $500,000 a year or something like that, as on Wall Street or as an investor or something. And then they just laid him off, and he just basically went broke. And he went back and lived with his parents. He was stretched with debt, and his brother-in-law gave him a job in construction, and that's what he did.
The company men.
Maybe it was the company man. I think that was what it was.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Boiler Room.
No. It was the company man. That was exactly what it was.
Yep, because buildings still need to be built. Oranges still need to be harvested. Grass still needs to be cut. I'm looking outside my window.
I've got rocks. Something I never saw this until I moved to LA, and I went to Palm Springs for the first time. Something called xeriscaping. Your whole front or backyard is just nothing but little pebble rocks. It looks nice, but there's no grass. None. And I'm like, yeah. Now the other downside is that I've got weeds to pull this afternoon.
So they still grow in the rocks. Yep.
Oh yeah.
So here's the other thing to consider, Matt, too. It's just coincidental timing that this is all happening in the midst of this huge technological breakthrough we call AI. Right?
Explain.
So you think about it from a business owner perspective, right? You got a new environment. They're taxing, tariffs, all that stuff. It's hard for you to get stuff in at the same price it took you to be able to get it before. So to your point, Ross, as far as what the strategy is, you got to think about it from the sense of, okay, it's going to be more expensive for me to bring stuff from the outside in. It makes more sense than for me to grow it from the inside out. But even if they tariff my stuff to go outside, I need to still keep my business going. So I got to supply what I need from the inside, both in terms of capital and machinery and products, cost of goods sold, but also people. Okay, people cost a pretty penny too. And to your point, Matt, you were talking about before, after COVID, you probably had a lot of people kind of feeling themselves a little much. It's like, listen, if you need me, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny. Well, there's this thing called AI that came up recently where your productivity per person can actually significantly increase as long as you have them doing the right tasks, because you have AI that can do a lot of their tasks already. So now you're asking yourself, each person, okay, what can you do differently that ChatGPT can't help me with? I got to save money. It's costing me more to bring stuff from the outside. I got to keep this business going, or else I'm going to have to start laying off people. So now, to your point, in addition to the retirement accounts dropping, you got a lot of employees saying, listen, if I don't straighten up and just say, hey, listen, I'll be the company man here. I'll show up. I'll stay up late. I'll work jobs I didn't work before because I can't retire now. My 401k took a huge hit. And also as well, AI, now people are saying, okay, what can you do that I couldn't get off of a AI tool? So now I'm justifying if you should stay here or not. So I do think, to your point, Matt, this is really going to be interesting to see what's the attitude for workers, particularly in America, middle class, middle management up, because I do see that being squeezed, and a lot of humble pie is coming down the pipeline where people are saying, listen, I may have to get a weed whacker. I may have to set up Ross's zero scaping lawn if I don't get my act together, because otherwise I might be getting right into construction as well.
We're not manscaping Ross. Let's just put that out there. Nobody's manscaping.
I said
Ross.
Zero scaping, not manscaping. Let's get it clear.
Okay. I wasn't clear because I don't know what conversations you guys have on Wednesdays whenever you guys meet. So
we don't like to put rocks down there.
We just had it 10 minutes ago.
Say what?
We just had it 10 minutes. I told you about Palm Springs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What happened in Palm Springs?
That's where I learned about zero scaping.
Oh,
well, yeah. I was just talking about you and Phil's other conversations during the week.
No, Matt tried to bring in manscaping. I see what he was trying to do here.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, Phil, I agree with you there. That's interesting. You know, I had another theory back when I'm still trying to connect the dots here, because remember when DeepSeek came out? DeepSeek is the Chinese AI, and they said, oh, you can run it on Apple computers or whatever. And what they did, everybody's like, oh, DeepSeek, it's an AI and blah blah. It was so cheap and it didn't cost anything to develop and whatever. That wasn't the point of DeepSeek. And the point of DeepSeek was China showing the United States that it can kill $1 trillion of GDP or value overnight by copying and pasting our digital products and dropping them open source on the market.
Who would have thought China copying and pasting what we did? That hasn't happened before, right? We haven't seen this movie before.
Exactly. And so I think that honestly, that was what I think a lot of people aren't talking about, is that was the shot across the bow, saying like, hey guys, United States, calm your stuff. If we want to, ChatGPT is not the only thing we're going to attack. It's going to be Microsoft Word. It's going to be Microsoft Suite. It's going to be Google Docs. It's going to be TikTok. You know what? Everybody, you're talking about TikTok. I'll just give it away for free. I'll keep it and I'll open source TikTok. You can have it. So it's going to destroy that value. I think that China has the ability to destroy the digital markets of a lot of these companies by open sourcing all of this, because they don't care about IP anyway, and destroy 10 to 20 trillion dollars of American value overnight. And so I'm trying to connect the dots here, but that was a shot across the bow, and we are now in an economic, honestly, just real big, like good old Mexican standoff of who's going to take the real shot here.
I can connect the dots for you.
Go for it.
You remember when the whole outsourcing thing was a thing like 20, 30 years ago? Globalization, that sort.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, businesses trying to save money, have cheap labor, do its things for cheaper than keeping it in state. Also funny now, 20, 30, 40 years later, we just been feeding one particular country. Hey, take our jobs. I don't want to pay $60,000, $70,000 for something that can get done for like 10. We'll give you the jobs. $1.50 Sure, I'll take it. I'll take it. Poverty. Yep. You get the jobs. You increase your education, get exposure to American way of living, how you go about things. China's like, okay, keep feeding me, keep feeding me, keep feeding me, keep learning your ways. All in the back end saying there's going to be a time where we can be able to turn the table. We're going to learn your education. We're going to take your jobs in this sense. We're going to do our own manufacturing. We're going to do our own technology. Now, China and U.S. can look at each other eye to eye here. Now, China can say, President Trump, that's fine. We can just raise your tariffs up to 125%. It's fine. But now just having somebody looking you straight in the eye and say, I can match you 1-to-1 if I want to. To your point, Matt, that's what makes this really interesting. We've been feeding a monster, and the monster is now able to turn its eye on us like Frankenstein, be like, I don't think you can just control me anymore here. I think I can actually call the shots here too if you're not careful.
Oh yeah, no, that is 100%. I mean, and it is exactly what's happened in China. And look, the I can't remember who he was. What, some kind of secretary was just on a news show just a minute ago, a couple hours ago, and he says China's been around for 5,000 years. America's been there for a blip. We've seen countries come and go. We'll still be here. Don't worry. We don't need you. We haven't needed you. So what are you doing? It's super interesting. Hey, Ross, I think that you need to take a break.
Yeah, I also got to ask you guys this one question. If reshoring all this manufacturing, will the workers make enough wages to afford to buy products? Will employers be willing to increase the wages to livable wages? Plus, how long will it take to build all the manufacturing places, presumably in the U.S.? Does the U.S. have all the resources to not need to import the materials needed?
Let me tackle this first, Phil.
Yep.
Well, actually, let me go through a bunch of things because we're about to lose some of our affiliates. And
isn't that what I just said? Could have sworn I just said that.
Yeah, but I said when you said tackle it first, I thought you meant like right now.
Like the answer. I thought the same thing, Ross. I'm with you. I get it.
Yeah. So
am I speaking Chinese now? What is going on?
Ni hao.
Can you? You probably can, can't you? You live there.
Oh yeah. Of course, I can speak Chinese.
Yeah. All right. This is Up the Middle. It's Friday. You're watching or listening on the Massive Media Network. We're going to be losing some of those network affiliates at the top of the hour. Radio X is going to stay with us, so we'll be in our studios. But 1400 AM and 107.1 FM K-Shop in Las Vegas, as well as Channel X on UG Media. We'll be losing them, so swap over to either radiox.com.au, Perth, Australia, or yergsradio.com. There's an announcement with yergsradio.com coming next week. I can't tell you today, but it's going to be pretty cool. But swap over to either of those two, or yergs.com if you want to watch the video, and we'll be there at the top of the hour. Till then, I got to take a break. We'll be right back. What are you doing later? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to the gym, but not just any gym. Momentum Fitness and Wellness. Walk right up to the door. There's a QR code on the door. You can sign up right there. You've got no excuse. But not only that, their equipment is amazing. It's kept up well. It's expanded. There's stretching area. There's CrossFit. There's hardcore training, a dedicated area for stretching, dunk tanks, sauna, everything you need to get that Hernando beach body or keep your Clearwater beach body. You can train with your shirt off, you can scream, you can yell, and you won't be intimidated either. Go to Momentum Fitness and Wellness on US 19 in Bayonet Point, Jasmine Estates. Build the momentum. Before I lose those affiliates, you can watch hour number 2 at yergs.com. Just click the live broadcast tab up in the top. And for other information, go to mastiff.media. You can email all of us by writing news, NEWZ, at yergs, YERGZ.com. Matt's the host of the Daily Crypto News every day. That's by the word daily. Learn more by going to dailycryptonews.net, where you can write him, Matt, at dailycryptonews.net, or info@demonforcongress.com. Philip's joining us today. He's usually with me on Wednesdays. If he is with me on Wednesdays, he's here today as well. His socials are Philip Blackett, Philip with one L, Blackett with 2 T's. Jane can be reached through the Boyerton Area Expression. She's with me on Mondays, boyertonareaexpression.town.news, and studiobbb.org. Check out DNR Studios by going to dnrstudios.com. Call your senator and congressman at the Capitol Switchboard, 202-224-3121. And if you need a pen pal, if you can't tell us where you're listening from, write me Yergs, YERGZ, at shayyergs.com. All right. 2, 1, there they go. Let's bring them back out and get back to David's question. David Levengood writes, that's from earlier. Let me pan this down. Bring the guys back. There's 1, 2. Why did it not go back to where I had you guys before?
I don't know, Ross. I don't know.
Reshoring all this manufacturing, will the workers make enough wages to afford to buy the products? Will employers be willing to increase the wages to livable wages? How long will it take to build all of the manufacturing places? Oh, it doesn't continue, so let me read you the rest. Does the U.S. have all the resources to not need to import the materials needed? All right, Matt, you want it up first? Go ahead.
So, I think there's a multifaceted answer. I think that honestly, what we're seeing right now is a restructuring of and a clarification, hopefully that this is their plan, is a clarification of trading partnerships. And if the United States has partnerships within the EU and Southeast Asia, as well as Japan, South Korea, and so on and so forth, we're going to have the trade ability and the manufacturing ability to supply the needs of the United States. And if you have reciprocal goodwill when it comes to either 0% or low tariffs for American goods coming in, the United States will find ways to also sell their goods overseas. This is going to be cars or appliances or anything else that's going to be made here, even clothes. And yes, are they going to be as cheap as socks coming from Vietnam? No, but are they going to be good quality stuff that maybe will appeal to the middle class or upper middle class of, say, Vietnam or Cambodia? Absolutely. And so I do think that there is benefits here. So manufacturing will grow. Will the workers in other countries be able to afford them? Again, I think they will be for not the average person. It will be for the probably the upper middle class people that will be buying American goods or wants like that clout of luxury or this idea of American goods. for the United States workers, will we be able to afford the increase in, say, products that will be here? I don't really think that there will be a increase in products, but I think there's twofold here. The first one is this is going to sound bad, but I'm going to say it. We are so damn fortunate in the United States, and most people have garages that aren't used for cars, even though you do have two in your driveway, plus a boat, plus a quad or whatever you want to.
Especially if you're in Florida.
Especially if you're in Florida, you have your two jet skis out there. You're using your garage for storage for all your junk too, because you have too much stuff.
I'm still getting used to that concept.
I am not giving you crap, Ross.
No. I'm agreeing with you. I'm still getting used to that concept of having a garage that does not have a car in it.
It doesn't have a car in it. Most people don't. They use it for storage because they have so much stuff. We have so much stuff.
The entire first floor is nothing but the toys that you just mentioned. This is the one garage in the neighborhood that could actually house the trucks that they have with the lift kits on them. These are $100,000 trucks easy. And they park these trucks outside in the saltwater air. It makes me crazy.
So what I'm saying is the United States, again, I think that we could use the inability to buy some things because we buy too much that we just don't need. And I think a little bit of consciousness when it comes to purchasing and what we're hoarding would be maybe beneficial. So look, again, I don't want to say that that's for everybody, but I can look at my fortune around my house in my neighborhood in my city in Northeast Ohio, and even people that are, paycheck to paycheck and like are living on very short means still have more than 99% of the world. And that has to be very much recognized. And so, but every time that's just, I think, a perception of you're comparing yourself to other rich Americans and whatever, but you don't actually travel abroad and go, hey, what does the most of the world have? And so, again, America's a special place, and I want not to change, but that's that. The last thing I would want to say about this is we have to understand that the markets do what markets do, and it's just like Henry Ford. When Henry Ford made a car, he made a car affordable so that the people that work at Ford can buy the car. That's how he priced it. And so, even though it might not look the way that we want it to immediately, I think that the markets, first of all, you want to sell your products, so you're not going to make them out of reach of the average person. And so the factors of the market levers will be pulled. Wages will go up, prices will come down, and you'll find an equilibrium where you can pay the most wage and charge the least amount for the goods for the most amount of people to buy that good, so you can sell your product and have a sustainable company. That's just what the market does.
By the way, in Model T, in October 1st of 1908, cost $850, similar to $22,200 in 2018 money.
Mm-hmm. Not a bad deal. I wouldn't buy one. It doesn't have Apple CarPlay, but
in fairness, we got to also understand that that's about one half of the picture here. We got to also understand what were salaries like back then.
No, 100%.
Just keep it in perspective. $850, but were we making $22,000 a year, or were we making something less?
Right. But I mean, that was Ford's thing, is like, if you work at the factory, are you able to buy the product? And so I think that was just part of the ecosystem and he wanted to sell these cars to people. Of course, price was high on cars, and that was in 1901. But by now prices are going up, but everybody has two cars in their garage.
Yep. They got the microwave, they got the refrigerator, right?
And then when your kid turns 16, they're not borrowing the family car. What do? You go out there and buy your kid a 16-year-old kid a car. Most people do. I'm not saying that I do. I'm not saying Phil does. I'm not saying everybody does, but that's what they do. People go, it's like, oh, he can drive now. Let's go get them a car. Don't just use a family car. We're gonna get your own car because I need my car. You need your car. We all have a car.
Yeah,
that's a privilege.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Agreed. The average worker in 1908 made 22 cents an hour and an annual income of $200 to $400 a year.
See,
while the Model T cost $825, or 2 to 4 times the annual gross. Now tell me again that
it was luxury then.
blah, 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 whatever else. But there you go.
I mean, I think cars right now are at least the annual gross of most people, or even more.
And climbing.
Yeah.
The cars are not cheap, man.
Nope.
I was in Chicago a couple weeks ago. By the way, Chicago is a dope city. I have never been, and I always thought it was just like a big Detroit. It's a dope city.
I've only ever been there in the winter.
Yeah, no, that's not fun.
Yeah. No.
But it's a pretty amazing city. There was cops walking the beat like every couple blocks. There's people on the street, so you felt super safe. It was super clean. It's a proper city. Anyway, long story short is I was in an Uber and this guy picked me up in a 2023 Santa Fe, and I was just like, oh, this thing was nice, man. It's a Hyundai. Like it was nice, man. But it had a panoramic roof, leather seats and stuff. And I was like, man, what is this? What does this thing cost, man? Like 35 grand? He's like, this thing was 58 for a Hyundai, sir. Yeah. 58.
Mm-hmm. You know, I got my minivan for $32,000 in 2018, and yeah, I think this is the best vehicle I've ever had.
Well, you got a Honda Odyssey?
No, I have a Dodge Grand Caravan.
A Grand Caravan. Oh, look at you taking it back to my childhood.
And that's
take out that middle row.
And that says something coming from the guy that's been in the beast. He's been dealing with the beast before, you know. If he likes the Caravan, like that says a lot about Dodge right there.
I've had 2 Ford Broncos. I've had 2 Audis. I've had my other Dodge was a Stealth. I love this thing. The seats fold down into the floor. I lived with these 2 dogs in the back of that van for 6 days after Hurricane Helene. I slept in my driver's seat, and $32,000. My dad, when we were at the dealer, the seats folding down into the floor was a little extra. My dad says, "Don't get that. Put them in the garage." Keep in mind that was a Wednesday. That coming Saturday, I was driving across the country to move to Los Angeles, where I did not have a garage. Like, where am I going to keep these? And, I trumped him on it. Sorry to use that word, but, and best car extra I've ever had. Now I don't even keep them up. There's one seat in the very back that's up because my mom and dad were here. So I had to have some place to put mom. She had the whole back to herself. She was stretched out and had the seat back, had the dogs back there with her sometimes. But just to cart the dogs around, we went and took a late night walk in the park last night before bed. And best car ever. They discontinued it 2 years ago. Why?
Not enough people buying them?
No. You know what it is?
They probably can't compete with the Honda Odyssey. I see those everywhere.
You know what it is? What dictates what the American car makers make for the American public? There are 2 agencies that make that decision.
The UAW?
They're the biggest buyers.
Oh. The police?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Collectively, the NYPD and the LAPD.
Oh, okay. So they make a different decision. Ooh.
Yeah, I got that from the GSA for when I managed the fleet at the Los Angeles field office. He told me that whoever they actually get together and look at various prototypes.
And that's a very good point. I think how vibrant do you think the United States auto market would be without all of the police cruisers being bought from American companies, Ford and Dodge and something? Like how like that would be a huge hit if they just said we're buying
Tesla.
Kias or Tesla. Well, Tesla will be great still, but it'll be huge.
We're buying a bunch of cyber trucks to keep our fleet together.
Somebody down here did. I gotta look that up. But yeah, that's why the Chevy the Chevy Turtle car was a big deal back in like the late 80s, early 90s. The Capri or whatever it was. The Impala was another one.
The Impala,
And
the old cruisers, the old cop cruisers, those are classics.
And then the Crown Vic. And what happened was so many of these other departments that are rural can't come up my mom and dad's driveway in a Crown Vic or an Impala. So we need SUVs. And so there's the two biggest cars out right now for police departments are
Ford Explorer and the Dodge Durango.
That, and then also the Ford Mustang. Florida Highway Patrol. Florida Highway Patrol is all supercars, Hellcat or whatever. That's a Dodge. But they have all the throwback Mustangs.
Ooh.
And that's for going 100 miles an hour on interstate.
DeSantis says I won't spend any money on public money on stadiums, which is good. But he said I'm going to buy the hell out of some Mustangs. That's what. So go, Ron.
Yeah. Speaking of which, it looks like we are not going to have the Tampa Bay Rays in the near future.
They're leaving?
Oh, you guys could have supported two teams anyway. You guys should have had
leaving. Where are they going?
We don't have two teams. The state
Buccaneers and the Rays. Is that what you're referring to, Matt?
Florida? Well, they have the Marlins.
The Marlins are Miami.
But is that not Florida?
Yeah,
I thought you were saying can't support it as far as Tampa, not Florida.
No, I'm just saying in the state. Like, why do you guys have two in the state?
Easy. No. The biggest issue with the Tampa Rays, and I'm cool actually having this conversation because we're also looking at having a sports station. And by the way, David, hopefully answered your question.
Well, Philip, that was one side of the answer. I didn't get Phil's answer, and David's asking more questions. He's like, the answer works for older generations, but not younger ones. But I don't know what. Well, they also wanted to forgive student loan debt too. So I don't know.
We had it made for a certain period of time.
I wasn't for helping with the student. I paid my own student loans off, and
I did too. And I don't like that answer. I don't like, well, I did it, so you could. But it's just like, no, that was part of the deal. Like, your deal was you're going to the university, you took out a loan to pay for the thing, and now you got to pay for the thing. And it's like, it's unfair. Like when the middle class Americans and people who didn't go to university got mad and said, like, well, what about my house? What about the opportunity cost that I missed because I was too nervous about $50,000 of student loan because I was thinking about the rest of my life. Like, you were just totally shitting on. We're not on the radio anymore, I don't think. You're only you're good. Yeah, we're just totally shitting on like a whole swath of people by saying it was just absolutely just bad ideas, dude. Let's talk about the cost of higher education. Let's get the cost down. Let's make sure that higher education should not cost you an arm and a leg or the price of a house.
Rates.
It shouldn't.
You know what's going to disrupt the higher education too?
AI.
Yes, sir.
AI.
Yeah, the interest rates on a lot of those loans need to come down too.
Oh yeah, the interest rates were crazy. And like what mine was 6%, 6.8, I think, and I signed it because I was stupid. And then
low.
And half of it was veritable.
I was with Hillary Clinton on her detail in 2007 to 2010. And when she was running against Barack in the primaries, she talked to college kids with 15% interest.
Insane. Should be illegal. Should absolutely illegal. Lock them all up. Lock them up. For our for education for our populace, should not cost 15% and $200,000. Lock them up.
Unless you have a free market to allow people to compete with lower interest rate to put the people with higher interest rates out of business.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I like this. 100%. 100%. I will give you a 1% loan, and I will do it for $1 trillion. I promise you I'll be fine.
I got to take a break, but when we come back,
You ain't gotta do
you
anything.
want to talk about the
I know this.
helicopter? What's
You
that?
just gotta pee.
Jeez, yeah.
No.
Oh, we gotta talk about the helicopter, and we gotta talk about this Maryland deportation to El Salvador. I really want to get Phil's ideas on this.
Yeah. All right. This is Up the Middle. You're getting off the porch and running with all three big dogs today. We'll be right back after this. What are you doing later? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to the gym, but not just any gym. Momentum Fitness and Wellness. Walk right up to the door. There's a QR code on the door. You can sign up right there. You've got no excuse. But not only that, their equipment is amazing. It's kept up well. It's expanded. There's stretching area. There's CrossFit. There's hardcore training. A dedicated area for stretching, dunk tanks, sauna, everything you need to get that Hernando beach body or keep your Clearwater beach body. You can train with your shirt off, you can scream, you can yell, and you won't be intimidated either. Go to Momentum Fitness and Wellness on US 19 in Bayonet Point, Jasmine Estates. Build the momentum. Rumble. Oh, let's get that off there. There we go. We are actually fair and balanced. Head up the middle. Take a look at everything from both sides. And part of that, the platforms that the Mastiff Media Network uses. Dude, I'm stuttering today. I don't know what it is. Go to rumble.com/register/Yergs Media. Remember, Yergs Media was what we were way back before Mastiff Media. We just couldn't change things at Rumble. Rumble.com/register/Yergs Media. If you want the extras while you're surfing videos throughout Rumble, or if you want to be a content creator and have the extras for your content, go to rumble.com/register/Yergs Media. Sign up today. I think Philip is going to only be here temporarily because he's got, I think, isn't today usually date day or whatever?
It is.
A little upbeat, chill music, isn't it?
It seems like a hotel bar at some place that's trying to be trendy.
Oh, the missus has a birthday this weekend?
Technically, it's tax day, as it is every year now. But we want to at least celebrate on the weekend when everyone's happier versus on tax day when everyone is not
happier.
So I'll have to hop off in a couple minutes.
Yeah. Well, did you have anything about David's comment before the break?
Yeah, I'll say this and then I'll conclude.
He'll say it right after you turn off this music. There you go.
Listen, I think what's interesting, back to what we talked about before, guys, is I think this is a really interesting environment to look at as far as employer versus employee. I think things was a major shift during COVID. And I think this environment is a lot different in terms of if you're having businesses that had to figure out how to survive in America now, they're going to have to bring their stuff from the inside more so to keep the costs down. You're going to be probably looking more flexible as far as the people doing the job, particularly if it's white collar, right? Like bonuses, high compensation. I wouldn't anticipate that staying as high as it was. I do see that people, if they're able to shift to more of a blue collar manufacturing, I see more of a future there if there's going to be more investment in America. But the big thing here is going to be more so what's the employee's attitude going to be, because things are shifting. And I think as an employer or a business owner, you're thinking as far as My costs are going up. There's inflation. I can't import stuff the way I used to. I gotta make do finding things locally, in source in the country, both as far as the equipment, the stuff that actually does the things, and then also the people. And I'm gonna be more apt to looking for people that are flexible, that are technologically enabled with AI to get the most out of it. And I can see a slight push down on wages as a result, because you're going to have people that are going to be less picky because they realize, because the environment's different and the retirement accounts will look a lot different, they're not quick to resign or retire right now. So I think the power shift is going more towards the employers. And I think with regard to manufacturing, that's going to play a big role there too.
What about services? Because I'm already have been for a while considering, instead of as we try to monetize Yerg's Radio and Mastiff Media and create the news side that we want to be able to create for radio stations and for our own network, instead of paying full-time employees, out of the gate, I was thinking about automating and also paying part-time and contract employees. Like, you guys, for joining me here every week, would get something for joining me here every week, but not to a point where a major network is paying you a full-time salary to show up once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and additionally, somebody that does a story for us, instead of being paid any sort of full-time, they get paid as like a contractor and paid per story.
Mm-hmm.
That they do a story. They say, "Hey, I'm doing a story on this. Are you interested?" And at least we say yes or no, so they're not wasting any time. But then they do the story and we read it on the air and they get paid for it, as opposed to sitting around all day waiting for something to happen and getting paid anyway. So I'm already considering that as a cost-cutting avenue for monetization that is going to keep our costs down and also keep us functional. Do you see that happening in other service area industries as well?
I'm going to hit the gong until people get tired of it. The best part-time employee starts with 2 letters. If I can get ChatGPT to do what a college student could do and pay it only $20 a month for full access, you can't compete. You just can't.
I think even further than that is, like, I think that I have a friend that is going for a law degree right now. And by the time he gets out of, actually he's still undergrad. By the time he gets out of grad school, it's going to be 5 years from now, maybe. And so it's like, by that point, what kind of entry level job in the law field do you think you're going to get? Like, what they need is one good lawyer that's a great AI prompter that knows how to organize stuff, and that's going to take 10 jobs, man. I'm more worried about these people that are going to come out with these, again, $100,000-$200,000 degrees, that think that they're going to get these internships or these starting positions at these law firms that just ain't going to be there, dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
Back in the mid 90s, when I was in college, my history professor and political science professor told us, your 4-year degree is going to earn you the right to flip burgers at McDonald's. If you want to teach history of political science, probably a master's, or skip that, go right to at least one PhD. At least one, to be able to teach at a university. And then maybe not get tenure and you get kicked out and you got to find another university job. Like Matt Damon. What was I going to do when Penn State says, we're not going to give you tenure, you're fired? You're not doing enough research for us and writing enough. That happened to one of the best teachers I ever had, was the head of the French department at Penn State. But because he spent his time teaching and not writing and getting the Penn State name out there, they fired him. What's he supposed to do now? He was probably 50 years old at the time. And so, yeah, to Matt's point, this is going to be interesting to say the least.
I literally thought he was talking about Matt Damon, the actor, for a second there.
What? Originally,
that's what I
was
thought
it
too.
Matt Damon? No,
because you said Matt Damon.
Yeah, you said
Matt
Damon. I was like,
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting.
Ben
I got
Affleck?
I got the wrong
Right.
buddy. I meant Ben Affleck. No, I meant Ben Affleck, the movie that Matt was referring to earlier.
I was like, he's on to something. I don't want to interrupt, but I'm just thinking. I was like,
let him cook.
Yeah, no, I meant Ben Affleck in The Company Men. Philip, what time is it for you? Do you got to run?
Yeah, I got to head out, guys.
All right.
But yeah, this was fun.
Thanks for joining.
We'll see you next week, right, Phil?
I'll see if I can hop in for sure.
Awesome.
At least until lunchtime, you know.
Yeah. Philip's socials at Philip Blackett, Philip with 1 L, Blackett with 2 T's. Check him out there. And also, where'd it go? I know it's here somewhere. There it is. Life After 40. Wow. There we go. Life After 40 by Philip Blackett. Go to, let me pull it up here.
Like his big old honking Republican tie there.
Yeah. Life After 40, book.com.
It's free on Amazon until Sunday. Then it goes back up. Free enterprise.
Or scan the QR code that's covering my face. How about this? Can I like use Philip's body and does that look good?
That could work.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for joining. And I'll see you Wednesday.
Good seeing you again, man.
See you next week.
Wednesday, guys.
Right. Enjoy lunch.
All right. Thank you.
To reply to David, I am 100% for universal health care. As much as I am a free market person, I think healthcare.
Yeah, I think that's past time.
100%. 100%. Now, do I trust the government not to use it as a big corruption, money laundering thing that's going to jack up prices and bankrupt the United States? No, I don't trust them. But do I think everybody should have healthcare? Absolutely. Absolutely.
The other one that I see being, what would the word be, nationalized, I guess, is flood insurance at places like this. I mean, it's happening already. I'm in a program where I'll find out soon enough whether or not I'm accepted. They're going to help me rebuild this house and pay for 75% of it. You know, what is that really? They're seeing that the already nationally managed flood insurance program is going to become too expensive. I have a neighbor who last July-ish, somewhere, midsummer, moved back into their house after having gutted it after the 2023 hurricane season when we got hit by Hurricane Idalia. 9 months later, they moved back in. 2.5 months after that, it's being gutted all over again because of Hurricane Helene. Government's done with that. And they're forcing us all, and rightfully so, to build up. And they're going to help us pay to do it because they realize the average person here can't afford to rebuild the inside, let alone build a second story. So they're paying for as much as 75%, which means if you qualify, they could be paying for a lot more. Here's your new house. Live there. Climb the steps. So I want to update people on this helicopter crash that happened in New York City yesterday. 6 people died. 5 Spanish tourists, a family of 5, 3 young kids. I think it was 4, 6, and 11, plus the pilot. And apparently, this has been a concern of mine ever since one of my first trips and what little I knew about aviation at the time. But these helicopters are just going up and down and just constantly, there's no inspection. Every time the Trump helicopter landed at Signature Airport, He just inspected the thing when they took off out of New Jersey. Now he's picking up the Trump family in D.C. He inspects the whole thing again before they get on. That was not happening in these tourist helicopters. And this is what happened.
Let's get more on this now from ABC News aviation analyst John Nance. John, let's start with the helicopter. What do we know about it?
George, this is a Bell 206. It's a Jet Ranger, and it's one of the most ubiquitous helicopters in the world. Very, very safe record, and it's a workhorse. It up and down all day long, especially for this company.
What do you see on the video?
What I see on the video is a helicopter that basically has disintegrated in flight, and the most critical element is that they lost the rotor system. That's what holds a helicopter up, is the rotor blades through the main hub, and when that goes away, you've got no control.
So there's nothing the pilot could have done?
Absolutely nothing. Once that departed, he was along for the ride.
So what advice do you have for people who are thinking of getting on helicopters like this?
I don't think there's anything to really worry about when you look at the overall safety record of helicopter operations and sightseeing, whether it's Grand Canyon or Hawaii or New York, is usually superlative. There's nothing here that indicates that we should have some renewed caution.
And thank you, John. Thank you very much. I want to get more on this from GR Transportation correspondent. We see these helicopters over the Hudson River all the time. How common is an accident like this?
So a crash like this is very, very rare, George. And as John just said, if a helicopter loses an engine, those rotor blades, they can actually auto-rotate and they can land safely. It would be a hard landing, but they can land. In this case, that rotor system just flew off. So this really was not a survivable crash because this chopper just fell. We looked at the numbers here, and since 1977 in New York City, the AP says 38 people have died in crashes. There was a crash in 2018. There was also another crash in 2009. But if you're going on one of these tours, ask questions. Don't be afraid, especially how old is that helicopter?
Very smart. Okay, Gio, thanks very much. Rebecca?
All right, such a tragedy.
And by the way, and you can find this online, the Trump
overnight a crane lifted.
The Trump helicopters are Sikorsky S-76Bs, which is 1970s. But so having been an airport agent and been around helicopters, fixed wings, jets, props, you name it, the inspection schedule of these aircraft is sick. When I first started, one of the other aviation positions I had at the Washington field office was I got to tread carefully here. There's some things I can't say. I was the guy in the helicopter that's above the president's motorcade or above any outdoor event. In the National Capital Region, that's flown by the U.S. Park Police. And one of my first missions first of all, at their hangar, they've got a full-time mechanic who does nothing but work on the Park Police helicopters all day, every day. And he's certified by Bell and Sikorsky to take their helicopters apart and put them back together. Why is that important? Because every so many hours, that is exactly what has to happen. Now imagine that old jalopy that you got sitting in your driveway. I'm not talking to you, Matt. I'm talking to listeners to whom this applies. Every 2 years, every 3 years, you pay to take your entire car apart and examine it piece by piece. And if there's anything that doesn't pass, you replace it, so you pay for that. And now that the inspection's complete, or things that are put back together, you put that car back together and continue driving. You sell the car and buy a new one. These helicopters do that. I forget what the hours are, but after every so many hours, the entire thing's taken apart and put back together. And so the fact that that happened tells me that was probably not being done, because whatever that was, that gentleman there from ABC, that is their flight guy, said those rotors just flew off. Those rotors don't just fly off. I've seen videos like the one you saw at the end of that video, where that one was making a water landing. You can land them on rooftop buildings or buildings of rooftops. Wow. I'm doing nothing but stuttering today. And I wasn't drinking yet, but that's next. You can land them on the rooftops of buildings safely in an emergency. And it's going to probably shake a couple of floors from the top, but you can land them safely or in the middle of a street. Because what happens when you lose the power, the inertia is keeping them spinning. So that when you land, they actually have rotor brakes. They actually have brakes to stop them from spinning. But also they lock in an upright position, meaning that as they're spinning, they're still causing lift. So as the inertia decreases and the gravity pulls it down, it's still somewhat light. That was not there. Anyway, have you ever been on a helicopter?
A couple times. They're fine, but
Yeah.
I think it's more interesting. Like the first thing I thought about when I saw this is I was like, I wonder who was on the helicopter, and it turned out to be the CEO of Siemens Spain, I think, and his family.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh, it's a CEO. It's just not a random person. It's just a CEO of a major company in a major place. I was like, okay, this is weird because, like you said, you know, the props just don't fly off a helicopter. They just don't.
Right.
Like one, maybe not them. And I think, folks, if you saw it, everybody saw is that half the helicopter just ended up in the Hudson River, and it's just honestly it's bizarre. It didn't come down soft. It didn't come. It just it came down, and so I'm calling foul play until we get more news.
Well, also, like he said, it essentially disintegrated. Like you saw the slow-mo of the fuselage coming down without a tail rotor, without the main rotor. How does that happen with proper maintenance?
I even if it wasn't it was improper maintenance. That thing was flying fine like earlier in the day. And if something happened, like is that the improper maintenance a result of a tour flight? No, that's you're doing overhead maneuvers and it's been shot at by like MiGs or something. Like what the hell happened, man? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Everybody always says there's foul play when something crazy like this happens. You can't explain it, and so it's like I'm going to take the conspiracy theory on this one.
Yeah,
I'm going to go on conspiracy theory land. This is me.
No, so I'm not necessarily going conspiracy theory yet, but I am going incredible levels of incompetence and I can't think of it, but lackadaisical. Not paying attention to business. What do you got here? What'd you send me here?
Oh, the plane just went down over in Boca Raton.
You know, I'm going to say it. We didn't have this during the Biden administration.
Trump's crashing the planes.
The whole building thing. It was weird. I heard it like zooming by a couple times, and then I just heard. I think a plane crashed.
So, did you hear him say that he heard it flying by a couple of times?
No, I mean, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, there's an investigation in New York. At minimum, the Federal Transportation Safety Board will be taking a look at that, if not something more serious, if Matt's conspiracy theories come to fruition. This ain't sounding much better. And there was conspiracy theories, by the way. I don't want to stir this pot, but let me anyway. Do you remember the ambulance plane that crashed in Philadelphia? Almost immediately after the helicopter and American Airlines flight over the Potomac. So you have an idea as to how far back to go. In fact, it was the week of the inauguration. Right after that, there was a medical transport plane something that Sport Cat actually used to fly, that crashed in Northeast Philadelphia immediately upon takeoff. There were a bunch of cartel conspiracy theories that they told the pilot, we've got your family, crash that plane or else. And I'm not saying that's accurate. I'm just saying that's the conspiracy theories that were out there. So now down in Boca, I'm glad it's on here because I can never spell Raton. All 3 on board killed. How do they know? If they can't get in to put out the fire, maybe they're okay. And yes, David, there will probably be there will definitely be some sort of investigation for this as well. Boca News Now, ABC, WPBT. What do we want to take a look at?
Yeah, what's on our next whatchamacallit on our docket?
What do we got? The Supreme Court and the El Salvadorian guy.
Up to you, man. Let's finish this up. Let's finish up the docket.
Well, I don't think we'll finish the whole thing in the time we got left, but this will work. Yeah, the administration is saying, well, this guy's a I keep wanting to say terrorist. This guy's a gang member,
right? MS-13 or something like that. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. That's a South American gang that's big in like L.A. Other rural areas, believe it or not, that you wouldn't expect them to be, such as suburban D.C., Maryland. And that's great, but you don't know that. I've got the Green Lantern logo tattooed on my chest. That doesn't automatically make me a superhero. So just because he did something stupid and put MS-13 labels on his body and a body art, that doesn't make him an actual member of MS-13. Likely? Sure. Is that beyond a reasonable doubt? No. Is it reasonable suspicion? Hell yeah. But you don't deport somebody on reasonable suspicion. You do it after due process. And that is something that the Trump administration has been not only bypassing, but just simply outright ignoring since they've been taking a lot of these people into custody. There's videos of federal agents at airports trying to just stop people randomly and forcing them to say, you have to talk to me, until one of those brown people that they stopped was a lawyer who knew he didn't have to talk and happened to be filming the confrontation. This isn't going to end well. And now, hopefully, in his absence, Blake understands why I say this is the Fourth Reich. Because it is. And I'm not the only one that said that. Don't you think it's kind of ironic that this is actually becoming a common label for this administration? So for as much as they seem to be bought and paid for on other cases, I think at least 6 out of the 9 got this one right. I'm curious to see what the other 3 say. How do you justify not bringing this guy back when the one party has admitted it was their mistake?
Do we know why why they're just talking about this one guy? Because I think he was on the plane of there's 3 planes that went and took people to the Salvadorian prison. So why is this person special? Besides, he has a wife and kids that are American, but he doesn't have a green card, and so I'm just wondering what makes him special more than everybody else.
That's who the media is talking about.
I mean, so I bet. Okay, so I think so that's great that we're talking about this.
But I think yeah, go ahead.
I think that's great that we're talking about this, but I think ask some questions are unanswered. And then there's more questions that we have to answer, I think, as a nation. Then, all right, so dude has been in the country since he was a kid. I think he was 11 years old. It was either 11, 13. I can't remember. Didn't get a green card or a citizenship, and so, but he does now have a family. I don't know if he has a criminal record or not in the United States. I haven't went through that, but let's just assume he doesn't. And so now he has a wife and kids. So we know already that the policy of the United States is that you have to come into the country legally, and get some kind of either amnesty or green card or work permit, blah blah blah. And so I would assume that we're talking about this person because he has a wife and kids that are American citizens because they were born in the United States of America. But now we have to ask, why are we not talking about anybody else on the plane that might have the same situations? Why are we not talking about the fact that he does not have a green card? And where does that line get drawn? Now, could he be a productive member of society? Absolutely. But does that mean that if somebody had let's say a 2-month-old, now we're talking about the same kind of conversation of like, well, or is it if you just come across the border, can we come get you and deport you? I'm getting kind of confused because of this specific conversation, the specifics of this instance. Is it that if you do come across the border, now everybody has to have a form of due process of figuring out like, oh, we can't deport you because now we have to go through the courts because you got us. I just don't know what's the frame of reference here of where we should be talking about of this is the policy of the US.
So I'm trying to find some of the stories, and the only thing that keeps coming up is the Justice Department's attempt to be using the Alien Enemies Act. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a fair question that we need to be asking. And that's something that the reason why you're not hearing it, I think, is because there's so much happening. There was a case like this. In fact, there was an entire plane ordered to be turned around and brought back. And the Justice Department just says, no, it's already in the air. It's too late. We can't get it. You're telling me you have no communication anywhere in the world with that plane when you can reach your entire military that's not sitting here on our coast? So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more that this administration could be doing to comply with courts that they flat out said they're not going to comply with. J.D. Vance said that before he was even the vice president. But yeah, they said that when this deportation was going to start, it was going to start with violent offenders. There's a case in, I think it's San Diego. I think they came into San Diego. Now they were living in LA, where they were here. A husband and wife was here for 30 years. They've got kids. They've got grandkids. They've had jobs, everything. They went to check in, as they've been doing, where they had been waved, thanks, see you next time, and turned around and sent out. And now, all of a sudden, they're detained. Nobody's washing dishes at that restaurant anymore or working in that vineyard because these two were taken out of their job and out of their lives. There's another lady in Baltimore who owned a bakery that was deported from a raid at the bakery. Now, how do you buy real property? How do you buy real estate where I turned in my driver's license and my passport when I bought this house? How did they not get some form of identification to buy a building or maybe even only to lease it? And we never discovered this then? Or we never did anything about it then? I think if you get that far in a process, you can be overlooked. And we've got gang members from MS-13 that we could be focusing on. But instead, I think this administration goes for the low-hanging fruit, like they did when they changed the name of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. or Denali National Park, back to Mount McKinley. So they can check a box. And so they can get in front of a TV camera.
I agree with that. I think that this was probably low hanging fruit. Not even low hanging fruit. I think this was political. They call it an administrative error, and I just looked up his history. He has not been charged with criminal. He does not have a criminal record in the United States. He was arrested in Maryland for a claim that he was a member of a gang and for gang affiliation, but the charges were dropped. And then they still cite the administrative error. But, all of this just still brings up the same question is like, what is the barrier? What is the standard? What is the standard of care that the United States should afford people within its borders? And it's a very interesting question because so I was trying to apply this to different. This was my little thought experiment this morning, but I was trying to apply this to different parts of the Constitution, and it was like, why isn't employers being charged with hiring so-called illegals? They probably should be, or they're probably getting fined. I mean, I don't know. That's a good,
Or they're white question. And nobody cares.
Yeah, so that is a good question. I mean, when I was a kid, I got paid totally under the table. I worked for 4 or 5 years, and I didn't touch everything was cash, man. I wasn't illegal, but they're doing some shady stuff at the place. Somebody's gonna come get me for that. Let's see here for 16-year-old mistakes.
We'll edit this out.
Yeah. We're live, bro. We're live. Anyway, what was I going to say? Now I'm confused. But look, so I was trying to apply this to a different
too. Yeah.
So I was just trying to apply this to like the freedom of speech, and I was arguing, and people are arguing like, well, if you come to the United States and you're not an American citizen, you don't have the Constitution or the rights don't apply to you. And I was like, and I was talking to my girlfriend, and we were talking about it, and we got to the conclusion that yes, freedom of speech does apply here. Of course, because one good thing is that America does have freedom of speech. So if you're you're having political dissent from another country, even though you're not an American citizen or you have like a green card, you can still have political dissent. Also, talk about your government. Also have criticisms, and those are part of freedom of speech in America. So by having that, you open up the conversation about other places in the world that would restrict said speech and give a lot of insight. And that's to journalists or what have you, or anybody.
Right.
And I would protect anybody who stepped on the shores of the United States, even if they weren't an American citizen, to criticize our government. I don't think that they should be arrested for that. At the same time, the Second Amendment, do I think that if they're not an American citizen, they should be able to go out and buy firearms? I don't know about that. I don't think so. But at the same time, do they have due process? If they are somebody who came to America not in the appropriate channels, should we make them go to court and whatever to get them out of the country? Again, where do we have the standard of care of what applies to what? I think it's very interesting that this conversation is very interesting because one, Donald Trump, I do think the Trump administration targeted this person for political reasons. Two, I do think that why are we just talking about him and not the plane full of other people that probably have the same situations? And then three, again, where is the line that's crossed of saying like, okay, this person does have due process and we have to go through due process. And if he has to be charged with a crime, and the other people who just crossed a week ago or 2 weeks ago, or maybe call it 9 months ago and had a baby in the United States doesn't have those same rights. And that's where I'm thinking about, I'm like, none of this makes sense right now. I can't say I can't say I support or did not support any of this because I don't even know what the standard is. What is the standard that we're applying for this case or any cases like this?
I don't. It doesn't seem like there is a standard. You don't hear about these people going through any judicial hearing or any due process. And there's the answer to your question, by the way. Yes, even undocumented immigrants, often referred to as illegal aliens, are protected by the U.S. Constitution, including the right to due process and equal protection under the law. And that's in, you see it below in the Congress citation.
So that's anyone. I mean, so that's interesting. So it's like if they escape the border patrol and they get into the United States and you go get them for something, they still have
some hearing.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Which makes everything pretty standard. So, but now let's talk about the Second Amendment. That American citizens should be able to own firearms
Yeah.
and not register. And it's like I don't know, man. It's just like all of these things are are they allowed or they are not allowed is one thing besides should it be? So the
Again,
it's the law of the land, and if the land is just crossing the borders, and then you have the law, which again I would support freedom of speech 100% with that. It's unlawful for a person who is illegally in the United States to ship or transport foreign commerce or any other firearm and possess any other firearm or ammunition. So therefore, it doesn't apply to the Second Amendment. I don't get it, dude. I'm confused.
But no, read what that says. It is unlawful for any person who is illegally in the United States to ship or transport. Does not say
foreign commerce
to
or
own,
possess in or affecting commerce any firearm or ammunition
in commerce.
in commerce. So they can own it.
They can't buy it. But if
so they can't buy it,
own
but they can own it. So they can be given one?
Well, if they already own it, if they crossed with it.
But no, it says
and
unlawful for a person to illegally to ship or transport. So they can't even cross with it. But they can be given one if they're not bought one. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's just an interesting conversation. It's interesting because now
loophole where
there's lots of loopholes, but now I think that we're talking about border. In this instance, now it maybe makes me understand, like try to figure out like where does that line, and what does it mean?
Yeah.
David said we had a good broadcast today. Thank you, sir, David.
Actually, he said great.
Oh yeah, not good, but great. All right.
Ooh, right. You got promoted.
Excellent.
All right. Well, you got to move on to what do you got? The gym next?
I got. You're 100% correct. Lunch and then the gym.
Yeah, I got to get 2 different playlists of Mastiff Media Magazine ready because that's actually what's up next. In lieu of Sportcat's Daily Gazette, he's still dealing with family issues in Knoxville. We might be seeing him on Monday, but until then, next 2 hours, actually 3 hours, 5 hours. Yeah, because there's other shows that aren't being done till next week. You're going to have news for the rest of the afternoon, bottom line. And we'll keep it updated. We'll put this plane crash in. You get some things from Australia and the EU. And I will see you.
See you, Ross.
Next week. All right, everybody. Thanks for getting off the porch, running with the big dogs, and going with us up the middle. This has been Up the Middle on the Mastiff Media Network, on Radio X, Rainbow Radio, and Yerg's Radio. Stay tuned for, what did I say? Mastiff Media Magazine for the rest of the afternoon. And I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.